Today I have this great guest, Bill Kleyman, CEO and co-founder of Apollo.us.
I work with data centers and I try and get people inspired to work in this space as well.
How did you come up with the idea or a business to get Apollo.us to where it is?
And so I'm looking at this piece of software and my first thought was, holy cow, this is incredible. And then my second thought was, this is where the future is. That's how it started. Vision and luck. That's when you come to Apollo.
There's a lot of people in crypto space who are actually building or at least pretending they're building a cloud, but not a lot of them are successful.
Be a kid again, right? Rekindle your childhood sense of wonder and ask yourself the question of what is something impossible that I want to do with my business that no other piece of technology can do for me, that AI can do. That's where we've had success.
So welcome to the show. My name is Sergii Gerasymovych. I'm a CEO and co-founder of Easy Blockchain. I'm a serial entrepreneur and now apparently I'm a podcaster. So today I have this great guest, Bill Kleyman. Well, Bill, thank you. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you coming here today. It's been some time. I really wanted to talk to you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, everybody. This is my first one. This is my first event of the year. I woke up and I'm like, I'm going to go drive into the city, which first day of snow, and I'm going to get a chance to talk to you in January as the first official conversation of 2025. I'm excited.
That's amazing. I appreciate you coming. Bill, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Well, listen, I was thinking, how do I introduce you, right? And I was like, all right, CEO and co-founder of the company, another company, who cares? So I came up to this this name. I think you are do-it-yourself AI cloud wizard.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Okay. I'm not going to tell you that it's not just correct. One of my favorite things to do is to go on ChatGPT and say, rewrite my LinkedIn profile, but write it for a 5-year-old. And I did that recently, and I'll tell you, it was absolutely hilarious. It went on there, it's like, Bill Kleyman doesn't just fix technology. He's like a wizard with tech and AI. If you want to be a wizard just like Bill Kleyman, well, here's what you need to study, and here's what you can do as well. And I'm like, this is incredible, and you know what? I'll take it. I'm a wizard to some extent. My CTO likes to call me magical, and I still don't know why.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that my mediocre mind coincides with the mind of ChatGPT. I'll take that as a compliment.
It is. Clearly your large language model is firing all cylinders.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a linguist by trade.
Okay.
So apparently I still have a little bit of that knowledge back in my mind there.
It's still a large language model, not yet a small one.
Yeah, right. Well, look, you've done so many different things. And so I have been in crypto data center world for 8 years. And we've been doing this hosting for crypto miners, for Bitcoin guys. And we didn't talk to real data center people. We didn't kind of respect them because what do they know, right? We're crypto bros. We come into the industry. We build those data centers in months. We start making money. And those data centers, they're old school things, right?
Yeah.
So now I have this opportunity to talk to a real data center guy in this studio, and that's amazing. So now I'm thinking, oh shoot, I'm not really that cool anymore. So Bill, tell the audience, what do you do?
Sure. Wow. So I do work in the data center space. I like crypto bros. I think you're pretty awesome.
Thank you.
And remarkably, however you want to define it, crypto mining is done in a data center, right? It's a different type of definition. So like Sergei said, I'm Bill Kleyman. I've been in the industry for a long time. Been very fortunate. So I work in the data center space, and unlike many in my industry, by the way, thank you for the compliment, by the way, but there are so many brilliant individuals in this space that I had a chance to learn from to become, like you said, a real, big boy data center person. But there's just incredible human beings that have taken me under their wing, Missy Young from Switch, Rob and Eddie Shooter, and Chris Crosby from Compass, and Peter Gross. There's a long list of names that I just quietly, can you believe it, sat there and studied. But I got my start right out of college. I got a network engineering undergrad, and I wanted to go work in data centers. And this is kind of long-winded. It started in Soviet Ukraine. And
wow, that early.
It did. It's
wow.
the spark started there. So my brother used to compete. We lived in Kyiv. He used to compete in these telegraph competitions, right? So Morse code and everything. And he used to put these big cans.
I didn't know those exist.
Yes, they do. Well, it was like there was Soviet competitions, right?
Right.
And you could, how fast can you translate and type? And he would put me on his lap, and you'd put these big headphones on me, and he taught me how to do like numbers and like words and letters, and it was the coolest thing in the world, Sergei, to get a piece of communication back from somebody across the continent.
Oh, that's
you know
so
what I mean?
fun.
And here I am, like 6, 7 years old, and that was the spark. That's what I fell in love with: communication, technology, the architecture of it all. And I transferred it here. I've been in the data center space, honestly, since 2005, in some space or form of it, working with cloud, virtualization technologies, traditional infrastructure, all the way into construction, designing, and building these facilities out. My experience has allowed me to go all the way from, my previous employer's switch had a tier 5 data center, which they classified themselves,
Yeah, wow.
all the way to working with folks that have tier 0 facilities. So very lucky. I've had a chance to work in this industry for, like I said, a while. Outside of a day job, I'm also the program chair for AFCOM Data Center World. It's one of the premier leading data center conferences in the world.
Cool.
It is very, very cool.
I didn't know about that.
I'm going to have to get you out there. It's going to be April 15th through the 19th, I believe. I may have gotten those dates wrong, but I know it's an April 15th, the day after tax day. That's
okay.
what it is.
Oh, that's what you. So you remember
Washington, D.C.
You couldn't find the better place after the tax day, huh?
Right? I mean, that's literally
the place where the money went.
My opening joke is like, well, I've half of you are happy and half of you are very frustrated. So let's just be happy here together. I do a lot of conferences, do a lot of talks. I'm also really lucky, and this is part of the reason why we're talking. I do a lot of writing, a lot of publication. I wrote the foreword for the ASHRAE TC99 book, which is a big technical guide for data center architecture and construction. This one specifically around data center infrastructure management. I'm a contributing editor to Data Center Knowledge, Data Center Frontier, so I do a lot of writing around these topics. And then overall, in my work in being, I love how you said it, a real data center person.
Right.
Well,
you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. My job and goal is really to bring this industry into the forefront. So I do guest lectures at USC School of Engineering. I'm speaking at the Bennett Day School here in Chicago on Thursday, and on Wednesday, I'm speaking at a high school to students as well. We're an extraordinary industry, as you know, obviously, for everything from crypto mining to obviously AI, which we'll talk about.
Yes.
That we don't have a lot of young people in. I'm one of the youngest folks in there, and I'm an elder millennial.
Yeah.
There's a word for us, a geriatric millennial, which I don't know who thought of that. Completely inappropriate. Just call me an older millennial. But we're trying to get more folks in. That was the longest answer to a very good question. Bill, what do you do? I work with data centers, and I try and get people inspired to work in this space as well.
That's very cool and fascinating. Thank you. Well, look, I've picked a few things that I'm probably going to reach out to you for.
Please.
That I actually didn't know. So that's very good. Well, that's why I do podcasts.
That's why we do this. We learn about each other.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's why I do it. Podcasting helps to meet good people and to, forge the relationship with the people you already met.
Exactly.
So one smart person told me, or I heard, that in order to get into AI data centers, you have to have energy, power, and bravery.
Oof.
Do you remember that guy?
I wonder where you heard that one from. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, that's a teaser. Bill said that.
Yeah.
So, Bill, crypto miners have been very, very brave people. I'm an example of that. 8 years plus, I'm in the industry, just got into this absent-mindedly, didn't plan for it at all. Then crypto miners also know a little bit about power. We have been running very, very power-hungry computers, data centers for years. Some companies have tens and tens of megawatts, hundreds of megawatts of power. And yet, that bravery and that power doesn't make crypto bros, crypto miners, the AI data center operators. So what's the secret?
What's the secret for a crypto miner to becoming an AI operator?
Exactly.
So I think we should answer this question a little bit with just a half a step back,
sure.
Right? So I work for Apollo, co-founded Apollo with Kostya Goltsev and Yuri Soroka, and we take a different approach to AI, and this is important context to what Sergei is asking about. How do crypto folks become AI experts? we've been around for about 18 months or so, January 23, right? And imagine, everybody, this is the proverbial dam of ChatGPT is about to break open. And here we have this company that we're about to co-found.
Right.
Apollo has a very unique business perspective. We're not out there trying to sell a GPU by the hour. We're not, right? If somebody comes in and says, Bill, we need an H100 for an hour or two, we point him to somebody's website. We deal with somebody comes to us and says, here's our data. Here's a problem that nothing off the shelf can solve.
Right.
But it's extraordinarily meaningful to me. I mean, if you can prove this out, the revenue, the ROI is incredible for me. Can you do this? And then we build around use cases, not necessarily around a GPU by the hour, but actual utilization of the stuff. So we learned very quickly in the data center industry, and this is why I joke around about this. Peter Gross, shout out to you, buddy. He's on my board. He's been talking about this a lot. He says the data center industry loves innovation as long as it's 10 years old.
That's a good one.
Which is a problem when you start talking about bravery.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't be very brave if your innovation needs to have a solid footing for 10 years, right?
Agree.
So I jokingly, remember I said this, you need two things to be successful: power, access to vast amounts of it, and bravery. The bravery part of it's the hard part, because our industry, the data center industry, and I'm not going to get too technical, please, the amount of stuff you can shove into a data center rack, and for those of you who don't know what a rack is, it's literally just a tall cabinet into which you put servers. The amount of servers, let's say, you can put into a rack is limited, right?
Correct.
Because of physics, airflow, right? And because of how these facilities were designed for things like emails and SQL servers and virtualization, Citrix and VMware boxes.
Right.
Not for crypto, right? So in those situations, those racks could handle, at an industry average, 6 to 10 kilowatts per rack. Now, that doesn't have to mean anything to you. That's fine. But understanding that an AI rack, one rack, is between 60 and 70 kilowatts per rack.
Unbelievable.
So you're talking 7 times?
Yeah. 7
times the power density? That takes up a lot of bravery, right? So all of a sudden, these data center leaders have to understand one simple fact. The amount of heat you can dissipate using air, that's it. We've hit a standstill, right? You have to use liquid to some extent. Now, airflow is not going away, but you have to introduce things like direct-to-chip liquid cooling, rear door heat exchangers, etc. So where do crypto miners come in, right? And you said you call them crypto bros, but let's be honest, there's a lot of wonderful.
What's a compliment right now?
It is a compliment, but
before crypto bro was like, now after Bitcoin over $100,000, it's like crypto bro. Oh,
you're going to see a very
compliment.
You're going to see a very PC side of me. It's crypto folks, right? Because you got wonderful crypto girls in there, crypto sisters.
You absolutely right. Yeah.
And that's true, right? There's a lot of wonderful female leaders in the crypto.
I actually had a podcast with one of the gentlemen, Taras Kulik, and he's the founder of Syntech.
Mm-hmm.
Half of his team are women.
And they're brilliant.
And that was amazing for me to learn that. And I was actually very much promoting that part of the world, that part of humanity to participate in crypto, because we need a little bit of organization here.
We do. So we can officially on this podcast go from crypto bros to crypto folks and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right.
So let's talk about power and bravery in the crypto world. This is where it's phenomenal and exciting. And this is where I, as Apollo, am excited about what Easy Blockchain is doing and the potential partnership here in the future. But in the world of crypto, remarkably, you already have the power.
Yes.
And you already have, quite a bit of bravery. So Apollo, we're a factory floor. We are a factory floor upon which you come in and build your AI use cases. Not a GPU by the hour, but truly a factory floor. What we need on the factory floor are tools, engines, furnaces, and to translate the technology, GPU, H100s, right? Actual gear upon which this stuff can run. So in the sense of you already have that. In the data center space, they have to acquire it. They have to put down a lot of capital. They have to figure out a way to cool it properly, right? Actually create efficiency around it. Because if your entire rack can do 10 kilowatts per rack, the whole thing, and one NVIDIA DGX unit is 10.2 kilowatts per rack. You're going to put one in, and that's it for a whole rack. It just doesn't work that way. The economics don't. So in your space, in your world, what we found is that we're capable, Apollo is capable of going inside of your environment right now and diversifying your revenue set by going both after massive AI use cases, very, very lucrative long-term contracts, not someone who's over there just trying to buy a GPU by the hour. And then on the flip side, you can continue to use your gear to mine and have a back-end way to make additional dollars. Nothing's being disrupted. What's cool about Apollo is that we are an orchestration layer. When your tools can be used for a more lucrative sense in developing AI, that's when it gets developed. Now, here's the thing where you mentioned this whole tier 0. What the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
This is really, really important. So a tier architecture in the data center space, to keep it very simple, how many faults can you handle? How tolerant are you? If your battery goes out, you have another one. If your cooling system goes out, you have a secondary, et cetera, et cetera. So tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is sort of the unofficial one. Tier 1, 2, 3, 4 are all from Uptime Institute. But tier 0 is sort of unofficial one. We love tier 0 architecture because here's what it does for us. You can effectively, in Apollo, right, in the upper right-hand corner, you can select a cluster. One of those clusters can be in Sergei's tier 0 facility, and another one that requires persistent uptime could be in our Omaha facility at Scott Data Center running on a tier 3 facility. Now, a user only has to click the drop-down. And what's extraordinary is that they have a platform that can use your gear, your infrastructure to develop AI, for example, on a model or an inference workload that if it goes down for an hour, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Or I can move it if I need to. But the cool thing about what you have right now is that you currently have this infrastructure and it's up and running. And
Yes.
so now these use cases can start living on top.
That's amazing. So I have a question here. So tier 0 data centers, crypto folks who run them, they claim they can compete with other big boys like CoreWeave, like Amazon, Microsoft, and all of them. But how do you compete with hyperscalers being a tier 0 data center?
You know what's great about this podcast? I had
Tell
no
me.
idea you were going to ask me these questions.
Oh,
I
really?
No, I didn't.
Well,
You
of
didn't
course,
send me any
I
of this
didn't.
stuff. You
Why
didn't
would
send me
I?
any of this stuff.
That's the whole point of it.
So we're going to do some live stuff.
Yes, exactly. That's the whole point of it. I really need you to tell me the truth.
So
And-
how do we compete, or how do you compete against hyperscalers? Well, we don't need to, and let's talk about
Right,
CoreWeave
okay.
and all those. Oh my gosh, I've been working on this analogy, and this is the best way that I can put it, and we'll dive into this. In the age of AI, this age that we're in, specifically generative AI, okay? Imagine that we are in a world that we just struck oil, but
Mhm.
no
Okay.
one has invented internal combustion yet.
Okay.
Too much raw material.
That makes
Too
sense.
much raw material. No one knows what to do with it. So my competitors, I hate to use.
Do you have
but
competitors?
Let's just say CoreWeave, like a CoreWeave.
Okay.
Like a CoreWeave.
All right.
They sought out to monetize and suck all of this raw material up and make money with it as fast as they can.
Okay.
So they built gas stations, right?
Makes sense.
You compete, and there's plenty of gas stations in the world, but you compete on dollars and pennies, okay? Pennies and cents and nickels and dimes, right? We didn't want to do that, so we took a step back and said, hang on a second. We don't want to do this per hour thing. We don't want to build gas stations. We want to build refineries. Because what if a battleship needs to get refueled? What if we don't need to make oil? What if we need to make plastic? You still need a factory, a refinery
Right.
to make that happen. What if we want to create a factory floor that enables us to use this raw material to create practically anything? That's the approach that we took. Now, to sort of bring that analogy to real life, right? That is the sense of a GPU by the hour business where you're literally competing on how low can you go for a GPU by the hour, versus a business that says, if you want that, go to their website, go to coreweave.com. If you're prepared to build something extraordinary, that's when you come to Apollo. So one of our customers is agriculture out in Omaha, Nebraska. And this client has a few 100,000 heads of cattle spread out.
All right. That's as real as it can be.
And they have cameras to capture visual telemetry from this cattle. Now, what are they looking for? Infectious diseases. They're looking for, is there snot? Are they walking weird? Are they eating? Have they drank water recently? And they run this model. And right now, before they move to Apollo and our Scott Data Center infrastructure, it took them 2 to 3 weeks to run that model. Now, it's good to take 2 to 3 weeks to find out if a cow is sick. That's not going to be very effective.
Yeah, it's going to die.
They move that, exactly.
Right.
They move that. into Scott Data Center in Omaha, closer to where the data lives and where they can actually process this stuff on Apollo. And they took that model down from 2 to 3 weeks down to 1 to 2 hours. So I'm a city slicker. I don't know what that means. So I went to them and I'm like, can you translate this to dollars for me? They're like, Bill, do you know how much one head of cattle costs? I'm like, educate me. Between $3,000 and $5,000. I have 200,000 spread across multiple fields. What you've done for us, what this technology has done for us, is that you allowed us to identify an infectious disease, not just in one cow, but an entire herd within an hour. I can send a vet out there within an hour to stop this. You've saved us millions. We don't know how many yet. We'll let you know. Now, that visual acuity model was so incredibly powerful, they applied it to potatoes, their potato fields, because apparently foxes like to hide golf balls in the fields. And they were able to identify when and where they were putting them. So when the combines came to clean them out, they weren't damaging the machinery and they were able to pull out those golf balls before they went in the machines. And not just that, the visual acuity model became so accurate that they could say that patch of potatoes is going to go to Popeyes, that patch of potatoes is going to go to McDonald's, and it can auto sort how those combines go out and pick that. That is a use case that an agricultural company came to us and said, here's something that we can't solve. There's nothing off the shelf that can do this. Can you build it for us? I'll give you another really fun example. In a city municipality example for just to give you an instance, this city has to deal with zoning questions, tons of zoning questions, right?
Yes.
And then imagine going to your city's website right now.
Oh yeah.
And scrolling to find a zone. So imagine a government GPT, privately held inside of this environment for this city. So now City Gate can be like, can I park my car on my lawn? Can I paint my fence yellow? Can it be 8 feet tall? And literally it'll tell you not a blue link, but a contextual response. Here's what you need to know. Here's the ordinance that applies to you. Here's what you can and can't do. Similar things with legislature for the city. If a new ordinance passes or a new legislature, how does this affect me? What does this do to my family? How does this change my environment? So all of a sudden, we've created a means for you to interact with data. Now, these are use cases. There's so many more other ones that I can talk about. We're probably going to run out of time here. But really what we've tried to do, there's engineering and design documents that we've done that can be templatized using generative AI. Could not do this in the past. So something that would take an individual who gets paid $250,000 a year, 3 to 4 hours a day, can be now templatized into about 5 to 10 minutes of work. This individual still has to review it, about 30 minutes of work, but then they're done. We've been able to templatize highly complex documents off of structured, unstructured data, all sorts, 80% complete for something that used to take hours to do. An accurate non-hallucination. These are use cases. So if somebody comes and says, I need an H100 for an hour, CoreWeave, Nebius, there's so many good ones out there. If somebody says, okay, Bill, here's my data repository. I need to improve sales by 30%. There's nothing out there that can do this for me. Can your technology do it? And then we build a proof of concepts, a minimally viable product using their data, their use case. We prove it out for them. Almost always it works unless it doesn't. And if it doesn't, the client still benefits because we go back to them. We say, we can't increase your sales by 30%. We couldn't even do it by 1% because here's the problems with your data. Here's why it's not working for you. You need to change this before you can use their information to actually make an impact. But back to your earlier point, increase sales by 20%, 30%, reduce engineering errors by some percentage.
Cost saving.
Anything. There's a city, Detroit, the city of Detroit did this. And because they were so inundated with dilapidated structures and roads, missing street signs, they didn't have the people to fix this stuff. A car set up with cameras can drive up and down the streets. An intern can drive this. And it'll identify there needs to be a stop sign there. There needs to be a fire hydrant here. That sewer is way too receded. And it'll prioritize those tasks for the city to take care of in the most efficient way possible. That's a use case. Not a GPU by the hour, but an actual thing to build and create. That's what Apollo does. We don't sell GPU by the hour. We can, but we don't want to. We're going after that inference business. We're going after real use cases that create ROI for companies.
So is it fair to say that Apollo.us is kind of like white labeled Amazon Web Services?
Oh my God. You said it, not me. Yes.
Okay.
So Apollo.us, and you actually nailed it. We are the industry's only true multi-tenant MLOps white label platform. So that means that Easy Blockchain could effectively take Apollo and call it Easy Blockchain AI, becomes entirely your product, your platform. And where we found a lot of success is that government compliance regulation. So we can take the many openly available Claude, Llama 3.1, for example, 3.2, Llama 3.1, 405B, and have it live inside of your facility. That means any government compliance, any organization that can't send stuff through the OpenAI API or doesn't want to, can use your infrastructure to do that. So yes, a true white label. We've got a telecom company. They're going to be doing inference at the edge. 70 sites across the United States. It's going to be the Apollo platform. You wouldn't even know it. It's just our engine on the back end, their UI, their authentication method. But because we're true multi-tenancy, now that's a really important thing to understand. Because folks like Run.ai, that's where we get compared to a lot.
Yeah.
They do organizational multi-tenancy. So Sergei logs into his Run.ai instance, and inside of it, you can carve it up. What we do is a different layer. We do infrastructure multi-tenancy. So a data center operator can, on the back plane, on the control plane, carve up network, storage, compute, isolation, complete isolation, and also metering, billing against each one of those resources and components. Truly owning the entire process.
Wow, that's very, very fascinating. You know, I recorded a few podcasts, and some friends of mine who listen to them, they said you're using the word "fascinated" too much. And I'm like, well, but how else can I explain this?
This whole thing is
fascinating. It is fascinating, right? So I'm going to use it again. I don't care.
We found success, and this is where I'll kind of give you a little bit of insider baseball. Where do we find success? We can't work with the hyperscalers, like the big data center builders. I
actually wanted to get in that,
but we can't. Yeah. So like Compass and Aligned and Digital Realty, for example.
Right.
Amazing buildings. Switch, my former employer. And they will be busy. I'm not trying to knock the GPU by the hour business. They're selling out their capacity for that. I just think that if there's going to be a bubble, that's probably where it's going to be.
I'm actually very curious to hear about that.
We'll discuss that. But they can't deploy Apollo because the second that they do, they're competing with their number one customers, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google.
Right.
So I go after the data center. So my customer is a data center or a telco, just to be clear from a naming perspective.
Okay.
And then the end user, the tenant, is who is actually consuming this stuff. So we've been going to data center co-location sites that already have enterprise customers inside of their facilities. We basically go to them and we say, we know that almost all of your enterprise customers are doing AI somewhere in the cloud. And we also know that they're not happy about it. They're probably paying too much. They don't have a trusted partner. Put this GPU stuff in, and they're going to come to you. And so that's what our partners have been doing. This is where the bravery part comes in. $60 million later, H100s across the board.
That's too brave.
It is very brave. It is very brave. But this individual, this is Scott Data Center, and Ken Moriano is the guy who did this, along with the Scott Foundation. They are an evidence-based business. I'm not just saying they dropped this much money and on a hope strategy. They went to their customers. They said, if I put this in with an MLOps platform, will you come to me? And he just kept getting resounding yeses. Over the course of 18 months, he just get more and more, like we're talking big name companies saying, yes, well, you're already here. You already have our data. We already have most of our infrastructure with you. We'd love to have our AI here. But we learned is that people want to do AI where their data already lives.
Bill, so Apollo.us does a lot of good stuff. Sounds like everyone can come in and use that Amazon Web Services white label. So it's very simple for me as a user. It's probably harder for you to make it happen, that magic happen on the back end.
It's not.
It's not?
You know, there's a reason why. And I want to make sure we talk about this before you ask the next question.
Right.
Apollo, when it was built.
So that's where I want to go. I really want to ask, how did you come up with the idea or a business to get Apollo.us to where it is? Because again, I'm just going to quote you more. You said that business without a strategy and execution is hallucination.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people can have here and just imagine that they're going to build a cloud. And there's a lot of people in crypto space who are actually building or at least pretending they're building a cloud.
Mm-hmm.
But not a lot of them are successful. They are dropping a lot of money on it.
They are, yeah.
And the investors are paying for that. But as you mentioned, there may be a bubbly situation soon. But at the same time, I mean, that's the future. But what about the past? How did Apollo start? How did you come from 2005, or let's go let's go earlier? How did you come from Morse competitions to actually running a Amazon Web Services competitor?
I'm glad you're saying it's like an AWS SageMaker competitor, because that's been the closest thing that we've been able to compare it to. And that's not fair, right? I'm not a multi-billion-dollar organization, but my capabilities are on par. Exactly. You mentioned a really good vision without execution is just hallucination. You're right. That's something.
Well, I just quoted you.
You did.
It was simple.
And it's very accurate. We want you to help our company scale, and we want you to ultimately help us sell this thing. And I'm like, you're a $4.5 billion publicly traded organization. I don't know what this shiny happy face can do, but I'm gonna be Bill Kleyman. I'm gonna do my best. And I was so fortunate to be amongst the team of data center builders, innovators, strategists, patent holders, designers that I did sit quietly and listen and pay attention. But I'm fortunate to be a part of that executive team that took the company. We took them private, sold them for $11 billion.
Wow.
It was an incredible opportunity.
That's an accomplishment.
And I was their executive vice president, a part of that team that made it happen. And then in January of 23, I'm like, high fives all around. I think I'm gonna do my own thing for a little bit. And I honestly was gonna take a break, like a good 6-month sabbatical, and enjoy myself, bake some sourdough bread, all that stuff, because I love doing it. But then Yuta Soroka, who I've known for 20 years, he calls me. He's like, Bill, you don't understand what I have. He's like, I don't want to. I'm like, Yuri,
I don't want to understand. I don't care.
I'm like, I'm tired. Let me just take a break. And he's like, Bill, this isn't just an AI company. And then he explained it to me like I explained it to everyone here. This is the chat. And again, ChatGPT just came out. Like it's insane right now. South Park does an episode. It's called Deep Learning. You have to watch it. It's hilarious, scary, and then hilarious again, because it's incredible. It's at the end, it says written by Trey Stone and ChatGPT. It's amazing. And this is literally January, February of 23. And so I'm looking, I promise I'll answer your question, Sergei, at this piece of software.
You take your time.
At this piece of software. And I'm like, what you're trying to tell me is that you have the industry's only white label MLOps platform that's the same as AWS SageMaker, but you can deploy it anywhere for anyone in a white label. And he's like, yes. And my first thought was, holy cow, this is incredible. And then my second thought was, we're going to have to find some pretty brave people to deploy this, to understand that this is where the future is. And so we went on a journey to try and educate people that the way you and I have interacted with data has fundamentally changed, right? In the past, what was I going to say? In 95, AltaVista came out. In 96, Ask Jeeves. In 1998, in September, was the first time we could ask Google a question. And since then, Sergey, everybody listening, since then, we have been conditioned to interact with data in a very specific manner.
Just question answer.
A blue link.
Yes.
A SharePoint, email documents, I don't care. A blue link. You ask a question and you get it's your responsibility to find the answer from that. In almost overnight, if you go to Google and Bing right now and ask a question, the first response is no longer a blue link. It's a generative AI response. So to your question, luck had a lot to do with it. When Apollo was first started, it was called Neuro, Neu.ro, and it was founded in Ukraine by AI, ML, and data scientists who were frustrated that there was no good AI, ML aggregation tool that was open source, could work, could be truly hardware agnostic. I'm talking like Intel and AMD, Poly processor. Like, show us your drivers, you can have an ML platform. Nothing out there that can do that. And so here comes this existential question, Sergey. Do we build this platform for the enterprise, or do we build this platform for the data center and the telco? And at just that second, a customer appeared, and they were a telco that was the size of AT&T and Verizon combined in Eastern Europe. And they're like, stop. We have the customers. We don't want them to go to Amazon. We don't want them to go to Microsoft. We want to keep them on-prem. But the only way we know we can do that is if we take your beautiful services layer, make it ours, and keep it sticky. So, team, don't build for the enterprise. Build for true multi-tenancy, backend support, integration with billing, services, CRM, ticketing, storage network, CPU, GPU isolation, all of it. Build it native like that for me. And we did. In the first year, the company at the time, Neuro, crazy successful, $1 million plus revenue. I mean, literally in the first year of its existence. Now, that's the good news. The bad news, as you can imagine, was that the company was in Ukraine and the customers were in Russia. So when the war broke out, the company literally shuttered. The IP, the people and technology were effectively brought over to the United States and rebranded under Apollo, US-based company now. That's how it started. Vision and luck, I think in this case, that's what it came down to. It was a moment in time when we were about to build the system just like a Run AI or like anybody else, like a traditional MLOps ecosystem. But at a very second, this customer came and said, no. We've got customers. We've got clients that want to use this. We've got the H100 gear, the GPUs. We just don't want to lose them to Amazon. We know how lucrative this is. Build this for us. And we did. But now we took that and now we're applying it to this market. Vision and luck, Sergei.
But execution as well, right?
When we executed on it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You have definitely executed on it.
Yeah.
Vision is not enough. And, not without execution, nothing can exist, especially you have to put the team together. So I really want to talk about that.
Yeah.
So what does it take to run a company, to build a company and run a company in an upside market? It's a little bit different than to run the company in a traditional data centers where innovation is 10 years old, as you mentioned. Here, I follow you on LinkedIn, I follow you on other social media, you on the plane literally every day.
Yep.
Sounds like. So there's a lot of work involved.
Yeah.
There's a big team around you. So what does it take to capture this opportunity, capture it now, and capture it correctly? Because I know from crypto experience, when the market starts moving, you forget about downside. You just don't care. You think things going to be great all over again, always. So what made you successful and what made you keep cool while doing it?
Walter Scott Jr., he passed away in 2019. I never got a chance to meet him, but his company, his foundation, the Susanna and Walter Scott Foundation, they're lead investors. And his saying, and shout out, was protect your downside because the upside will take care of itself. And it's brilliant. It's a brilliant statement. And in the sense of what you're asking about, it's important to go to people. Again, not every data center is my target. It's not, right? There's going to be facilities out there. Like I'll use like Digital Realtor or Compass. They are operating under a proverbial glass ceiling. They can support the market, but they can never participate in it, right? Because if they deploy Apollo, they start competing with the number one customers. Yes. But there is an extraordinary wealth in the crypto space, but also in the data center space, that here's where they are. They're like, okay, I can probably put rear door heat exchangers in my environment. I can probably do that, right? I can probably get to 60, 70 kW, but then what? Like, my options are this. I buy the gear. I'll buy the GPUs. Now what do I do? That's literally the response that we get at Apollo. Cool. Right. My options are I can do GPU by the hour. That's it. I can do bare metal. I can actually go out to my customer and say, come hop on here. I've got all this GPU stuff, storage, bare metal as a service, right? There's a really interesting company called HydroHost. Check them out. They're nice. And what they do is, let's say a data center deploys a bunch of GPUs, have no idea what to do with them. They're an aggregator. They're like, point your GPUs to me. I'm going to sell them on the open market, take a little slice. But you're still in that $2, $3, $1.50 an hour market. My list is $875. And we don't blink. We're like Tesla. We don't negotiate. That's what you're going to pay. And the reason is because it encompasses managed services, MLOps support, MLOps managed services. So like if you are using Apollo and you have a problem, you email my team and that's a part of your coverage. The cost is covered there. So when we go to these data center providers or even crypto folks, here's how the conversation has to go. It's like, your enterprise customers are doing this. We know that this is going to be the future. The AI, this architecture is the future. So you have to ask yourself this question. If you want to participate in this, how do you do it most effectively? And by far, what we've learned, the most effective way is you buy the gear. Well, obviously, first, do an internal study. Go to your top 5 customers and ask them, I have a great relationship with you. If I put this GPU gear here with my own MLOps platform and support everything you're building, your own large language model, everything, full managed services, will you come to me? And as long as you can get like 2 or 3 good-sized anchor customers, you're already in a position to justify a good purchase for this infrastructure and this gear. So what we've been doing is we've gone to these data center partners. We say, we know your customers are doing this. We know they're going to AI. And instead of just taking a big gamble and buying this gear, buy one rack. Buy 1 or 2 racks. Put Apollo in there, put one of your customers on there and see how it does. Because what we've learned is that it takes about $2 to $3 million to put one rack together.
Right.
Everything together. But that one rack would generate between $2 and $5 million in ARR, in annual recurring revenue. Because the amount is incredible. Because we're not going after the per hour business. Our tenants, the end users, sign 1, 2, 3-year contracts. And to make it really, really incredibly easy to sell, we created t-shirt sizes, small, medium, and large offerings. A small, 2 DGXs or HGX boxes, medium, 4, large, 6 or more. And then we went out to the channel and we said, sell this for us. Nothing technical, nothing crazy that you have to know. If your salesperson sells 4 of these boxes on a yearly contract, they make $150,000 in commission straight to them. If they sell 6, $250,000 in commission for them because we control the margin. Now, that is absolutely a story from a real live data center that's currently doing this. That's how they're going about the channel. That's how they're facilitating the entry of their enterprise customers. That's the success. Find a facility, right, that says, okay, I've got like 50, 100, 300 enterprise customers in my environment right now. I think this is actually something I want to do, but I don't just want to deploy GPUs because it's pointless, right? I'm back into this non-sticky, non-committed, very low margin type of market where I want that true stickiness. So the answer is that you have to look at the services. You have to look beyond the GPU and actual services that create that stickiness. You don't go to Amazon for the gear.
Right.
You go to Amazon for all the services that are wrapped around it. That's the point.
Yeah, so there is no free money. There is no free money, definitely. And Apollo's business here is you, as far as I understand, take a cut.
Rev share.
Revenue share.
It's really strict and it's very straightforward. We don't get paid unless your infrastructure is actually running. Now, I'll tell you what those numbers look like. My goal is between $10 and $20 million per facility. But that means that facility is now recognizing upwards of $250 million in net new revenue from an entirely new business service, right? Which is generative AI or AI in general. Now, some of the use cases that I talked about, like that cow one, that's not generative AI. That's traditional machine learning. The problem is that the data was being processed too far away.
Yes.
It needed to be closer. And now those models are far more powerful. We're talking about traditional AI, traditional ML that can now run far more effectively on the kind of infrastructure that you have, for example.
Sounds like is mostly on the people who buy hardware, because they buy hardware and it's a very highly capital intensive business. You have to build infrastructure. So your business is involving less risk. But what I want to ask you is, all this AI frenzy has happened because of 2 things: ChatGPT and NVIDIA being able to deliver the GPUs they have been delivering.
Sure.
And today, in today's world, today's market, the most money is being made by NVIDIA.
Sure.
No one else, honestly,
yeah,
right? So companies like yourself are just coming in and providing the way for other companies, data centers, to make money without taking all that risk and selling the GPU not at $2.50, but at $8.50, right? So NVIDIA is worth over $3 trillion, probably 3.5 already. I don't even know, right? It changes every day. Do you think there are going to be other players in the hardware space, such as AMD, Intel, Qualcomm, that are going to start competing? And do you think we may be in the bubble? Because you did mention a few use cases, and those are great. Agricultural use cases, there are definitely many others. But still, I think there's not enough use cases. And most of the money is made in the infrastructure business. And for now, we're just spending. So what's next for the hardware?
Many analysts have called this the sort of the lull. Let's call it the digestion period of AI, right? And I want to be the
It's a $250 billion digestion.
And I want to be the Pepto-Bismol to that digestion period, right? You bring up a really good point. Right now, a lot of investors are like, cool. You bought all this gear. Now let's make it work. Now, for some people, that is a sweat-inducing moment because they don't know how to do that. For us, it's a little bit less scary because we have enterprise customers lined up and we have use cases that are lined up as well. So we tried to take this from a really different approach today, right? We wanted to make sure that there was an established use case. We wanted to minimize risk as much as possible. never, ultimately.
Well, it's your business, but you asking other companies to take risk and take
We are helping them minimize that risk as much as possible.
By providing the services.
By providing the services and the evidence-approached validation that what you're buying is going to give you that return that you're looking for. Like, because you're going to put the customers in there because they've already signed up. That's the thing. I'm not going out there and saying buy $50 million a year because people are going to come to your rock concert. I'm saying sell the tickets first and then build the stadium.
I love that
in that sense, you don't even have to sell out this whole stadium. Sell 10%. And people are like, oh, wow, people are lining up at the door. I know I'm going to fill my seat. So validate that this infrastructure is important to you by going after your customers, your tenants' existing use cases, and then helping them coming into your environment. Look, there's always going to be risk, but let me flat out say this. Kevin O'Leary recently came out and said, somebody asked him, like, he's from Shark Tank and all that, like, what are you looking at right now? What are you looking at? And he was stopped in the middle of a hallway, unprepared, said, data centers and real estate. If you're not looking at data centers and real estate right now, you're missing out. Now, if you dive deeper on what he's actually talking about, these GPUs that my partners are buying, zero by the end of 2020, which is impossible, but zero, they can sell them at a profit. Or they can do bare metal.
Will they? I could disagree with you here. So, well, you buy H100s, then H200s come out, and then Blackwall, and then Whitewall, and then Greenwall. And the moment you get the first batch delivered, there's a new, more efficient GPU coming. So that's why I asked a question about, are there any other competitors? Because NVIDIA doesn't care. They just want to sell volume. And most of their business is coming from Amazon, from Meta, from Microsoft. And those guys are putting hundreds of billions of dollars into it. Right.
So let me answer that question. Apollo is unique, and there's not others out there. So we are completely hardware agnostic.
Okay.
So Sergei,
so you go ahead.
Can have 3 different facilities running Intel Gaudi, AMD Instinct, and NVIDIA GPUs. All 3 different ones. Apollo fully supports them in every way. So a user, again, logs into Apollo, right? And in the upper right-hand corner, you just select the cluster. Now, we are also the only ones in this entire industry outside of SageMaker and Amazon and Microsoft and Google that can do cross-cluster orchestration. So that means in a single click from your environment, I can orchestrate into Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA environments across different sectors, across geographic distributed environments. But we're one of the, outside of the hyperscalers, the only ones that can actually do that effectively today. So to your point, here's another, we've got a technology partner of ours that develops polyprocessor technologies. Now, they have a piece of hardware that's going into a specific vertical industry. They're just going to be buying from there. They don't have an MLOps platform. That's what they're going to be doing, AI and ML and data scientists on these polyprocessor technologies. They're going to take us and we're going to be OEM. Just original equipment manufacturer, white label directly on top of that piece of polyprocessor technology, and we're going to be sent out to science institutions and research labs. Now, 100%, we absolutely believe that. Now, the problem, Sergei, the problem are the drivers. The problem are the drivers. The problem is the software. The problem is the fact that CUDA.
That's where AMD is lagging to be guiding, right?
The problem is that CUDA has basically a monopoly right now on that development structure that without it, you're really not going to get very far. The other challenge, for example, AMD drivers. It's very difficult right now to point those drivers to a really effective ML ecosystem. We can do it. We've done it. We currently have several MI 300s and 210s running under Apollo that we can orchestrate. But that took work, right? That actually took us some time to point those drivers to our ecosystem so you could actually have an efficient job. The challenge right now, and it's not forever, I do believe there's going to be other process technologies out there. It's just that NVIDIA had one heck of a lead, right? I mean, they got lucky and they transferred most of their workloads into gaming, created the GPU, and lo and behold, GPUs aren't only for, running Call of Duty or your favorite game. It's also for everything from crypto to obviously AI and ML. So to answer your question, yes, there's going to be competition. I think there's probably 12 to 24 month runway still. But even to your point, there's challenges. Like, look at these delays, right? There's one of the big delays that happened recently where NVIDIA is just trying to figure out, I can't cool these. Like, we're having thermal issues, not just on the chip, but the entire rack. Now, if NVIDIA can't figure out how to do that, my gosh, what do data centers have?
Yeah. Well, data centers, it reminds me like buy my equipment, figure it out, and it's just a big hype around it.
Yeah.
And my theory is that when everyone goes to sell picks and shovels, there's no one to dig gold. There becomes a real bubble in picks and shovels world.
That's a great analogy, right? I think in the age of generative AI, which is being in this era of gold, you want to be selling the pickaxes and the shovels,
right?
We want to be building the pickaxes. That's where we're coming in this picture from. You're absolutely right, and the AI gold is there. But what we've learned right now very easily, there's a really great segment on NPR recently as well. They said a lot of questions are, what can this do for me? What can AI do for me realistically in terms of like an ROI, revenue, moving the needle on my business? And I agree with what the statement said. You have to try it. You just have to try it out. Each and every single one of our most successful projects has started out with a little MVP, minimally viable product that we showcase that it works. And that is where I challenge all of you and the executives and everybody, be a kid again, right? Rekindle your childhood sense of wonder and ask yourself the question of, what is something impossible that I want to do with my business that no other piece of technology can do for me, that AI can do? Now, that in itself, that thought pushes you away from a GPU by the hour, that actually create a use case for your business. That's where we've had success. That's the only way that we're not scared of the risk, that we're not looking at, any sort of real bubble, because we're insulated, because my data center partners own the gear. And because they own the gear, they can play with the margins, right? So like in a year or two, when the new chips come out, that 875 becomes 575 or whatever it is, right? And we're still making money because we control that entire process, and we own the margins, obviously the software and the hardware on top of it. But it comes down to use case. That's where the success is. And working with a good partner that can illustrate that use case and walk you through it. Our biggest success starts with a conversation, a workshop, and then a small implementation. Now, these MVPs aren't like $1 million. They're not. They're like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand. They're not crazy, but they validate your theory. They validate your use case. And then you look at this $50,000 project and you're like, oh my God, this is going to make my company millions of dollars. Let's deploy this.
AI is growing. You guys helping AI to grow. NVIDIA is selling GPUs and investing in the companies who buy the GPUs. Other companies come in. What about energy? You said energy and bravery. So bravery, that's obviously something we can come up with. We can train on it. Energy is becoming an issue in America. I've faced this running a crypto mining hosting company. I've started seeing that there's less and less energy available on the grid. And more companies in crypto world connecting to the grid, as well as now there's a huge competition from AI.
Yeah.
When I talk to someone from Meta or Microsoft, they talk about gigawatt campuses. And gigawatts are just an enormous amount of power. And I don't think they really realize, but maybe I don't even realize what they can do. So what is the energy markets going to look like within the next 3 to 5 years? Are we going to see the boom in nuclear energy? Or are we going to see the wind, solar, or we're going to start opening up natural gas power plants and coal power plants again? What are your thoughts?
This is probably one of my favorite parts of the conversation here is talking about.
I had to worry you out a little bit.
You did warm me out a little bit. When I worked at Switch, I got a chance to learn about power systems. There was a time that I was a part of a project, Gigawatt Nevada, and that was a $1.2 billion project.
Unbelievable.
And it was 555 megawatts of solar panels, and just thinking about 10 acres is required for 1 megawatt of solar, right?
Yeah.
And that was backed by 850 megawatt hours of Tesla Megapack batteries.
Okay.
Right? For a time being the biggest behind the grid solar plus battery project ever, right? And so now we fast forward to today. There was a conference that I recently went to, and JLL, Jones Lang LaSalle, the biggest big real estate company, came out and they said that we've been tracking deal sizes, real estate deal sizes for data centers, and we've seen them go from like 5, 10, 15, 20 kW to like upwards of 300 megawatts per single transaction.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Single transaction. And then obviously anecdotally conversations around 500 megawatts, upwards of gigawatt sized campuses. Now that's insane, right? And there was a recent a talk from the Department of Energy saying that we've got about 5 gigawatts of data center construction happening right now, but
across the whole country.
Yeah, but 35 in demand, right? In the state of Arizona, it took them, I think it was 138 years to get to 11 gigawatts of consumption, and now they have pretty much all of that over
It's crazy.
in next year, right? So to your point, no, we don't have enough power. We don't. It's a challenge, right? That's why I've been going after secondary markets, right? Omaha, Nebraska, Lafayette, Indiana, all these different places that actually do have access to some of this power allocation to it outside of the major cities. So I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek. The AFCOM State of the Data Center webinar is on the 16th of January. And depending on when this comes out, and maybe before or after, we'll have a link for you ready to go. And in that webinar, we present findings. And I've written this report for the past 9 years. I'm really fortunate. It's phenomenal information in there. And 3 years ago, we asked the nuclear question. Like, what are the top 3 options out there for nuclear technology? And I'll give you the hint. It went from 11% 3 years ago to over 30% in the latest report. You're the first person to hear that, right? We're going to be talking about it on the 16th, so exclusive. But in that sense, that's extraordinary. Nuclear technology is now just second to solar, and then hydro and everything else below it. Now, I spoke with Brian Smith, who is currently the acting deputy secretary. I hope I get your title right, of nuclear reactors at the Department of Energy, and they're going to be presenting at Data Center World. Also, the U.S. government believes it's a part of national security to reinforce energy stability in the United States. They believe it's a part of the modernization. This is cross administration, doesn't matter. The modernization of our infrastructure and our grid to be able to support more, obviously support more data centers, more communities. So they're looking at nuclear as a true viable option. In fact, at Data Center World this year, we're going to have INL, Idaho National Labs, Department of Energy, and a few others in a 2.5-hour session saying, here's how you get a permit. Here are the government grants that are available. Here's how you get started. Here are the companies that are actually licensed to build this out and start doing this. Here's how you overcome community challenges, like where is it going to be stored? Who's going to be securing it? What kind of uranium is going to be there? What's the disposal look like? Actually doing this stuff. Now, there's going to be people that are going to listen to this, and they're going to argue with me. I think the market feels it's going to be at 2035 before we really start to see small modular reactors in math.
Yeah, I agree with you on that matter.
I think I'm hoping.
But it's a long time. We have 10 years.
I'm hoping it's earlier. I don't know where else we're going to get this, but here's the fun part. Like, for example, in West Texas,
yes,
a friend of mine, Yuval, and his company called ECL, they're bringing a line of 2 gigawatt hydrogen farm, right? In Eastern Arkansas, 100+ megawatt natural gas plant.
So natural gas, you think, going to be the future?
Natural gas is a good one. Microgrids are good that give you ability to create base load of power from various sources, for example. The problem is, like, the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. That's the problem, right?
Right.
So you have to have base loads of power for this infrastructure. The problem is that these base loads, they're ridiculous. They're absolutely ridiculous. The kind of demand that we're seeing out there. But here's the thing. Many of these advanced AI systems and data centers that are going to be coming online, we're talking like 27, 28, 29.
So we still have time. That's what you're saying?
We do, because many of these projects that are currently being commissioned, I'm literally speaking at a keynote tomorrow for a data center company. Their main facilities aren't coming on like 27, 26, 27, 28. So like we have that runway for energy to potentially catch up with us.
So if we break down your answer, with the next 5 years, 7 years, we will not see a real glut yet. But after that, if the energy infrastructure doesn't keep up and we don't have a big substitutes of coal and natural gas, we're going to start seeing problems.
Yes. I mean, we're already starting to see some of those problems.
Tier 1 markets.
Yeah, like in Atlanta, for example, like the community's like, stop building all this stuff here. Like, we're good.
Yeah, I read the article today against this.
And Northern Virginia continues to be a problem. Look at like Scotland and Ireland and the United Kingdom. Like, you literally can't build a facility anymore because it's an island, right? Yeah. There's literally limited amounts of resources. When Apollo was starting out, we looked at building a facility.
Oh,
yeah, we thought about it. But again, the problem was we wanted to go to market as fast as humanly possible. So that's why we sought out people who were brave and would do it with us, right?
Right.
Realistically, it was a 2-3 year time frame, regardless, right? When we went out to Europe and we asked Portuguese government, some of their highest people, can you give us 300 megawatts? They laughed at us.
Yeah.
They laughed at us. They're like,
Portugal is
Bill,
a small country.
well, not just that. Like, you wouldn't just be the biggest data center in Portugal. You'd be the biggest data center in Europe. Come on, that's ridiculous. So I'm like, all right. Well, we sort of understood. We understood that power is a real challenge out there, right? So we've gone after data center partners that have that capacity, that have additional power capacity that's been committed to them. For example, that's the best way to approach it. But you better believe that working with power and commissioning. That's why I really believe that secondary markets are going to be a big one. Secondary, tertiary markets, emerging markets are going to be big.
What do you think about growth of data centers not in the United States? South America, there's a lot of crypto mining going on in Paraguay. There's a lot of stuff going on in Argentina. And Argentina has a new president. Obviously, he's very open to the business.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to be data center built by big hyperscalers in those markets?
In Ecuador, I forget it was Venezuela. Who standardized their currency on entirely on crypto in South America?
It's El Salvador.
El Salvador, thank you. And boy, does that president currently look really good, right?
Yeah,
made a whole bunch of money, and then you just needed to be patient.
Yeah, it's a crypto bro now.
It is. He's one of the crypto folks.
It's a compliment.
And but to your point, in India, the world's most populous country, 2+ billion people, they consume, I think, if I'm not mistaken, between 400 and 600 megawatts of power in data centers alone.
That's nothing comparatively, yeah.
That's one market. That's one market in the United States. Same thing in South America. Very, very small uptick. In Africa as well is a big one. I think Africa is like maybe 300, 400 megawatts. I spoke in New Zealand in September last year. And, Sparks and Datacom and, we're seeing more cable being laid. Basically where the cables are going is where the data center is going to be built. I 100% believe that we are going to be seeing a more connected world, and data centers play a big part of it. I don't think we're going to see massive facilities. In South America, a lot of these players are building smaller 1 to 5 megawatt types of modular ecosystems that can really impact communities and cities. So the answer is yes. The answer is yes, that we're going to absolutely see a massive uptick globally. We have a data center partner in Europe, NovaServe. And look, AI in Europe, it's going to be big because of the AI Act and GDPR. In fact, the European enterprise customer is even more reluctant to go to Amazon and stay on-prem. So we're going to probably see a boom in Europe as well.
That's very cool to know that there's more different data center markets coming up online all across the world. So we on time here. We've been talking a lot, but I still have so many questions. But I want to ask you probably one of the most concerning questions to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is AI a new revolution that's going to lead us to utopia or to Genesis moment?
I did a keynote talk in Phoenix. It was one of the last trips that I did. It was in December. And it was the National AI Data Center Conference. And one of my last slides were like, what kind of person are you? Are you half full, glass half full, or glass half empty?
So what are you, Bill?
Yeah, well, in case you can't tell. I'm an optimist. I'm a glass half full kind of individual. I truly believe that these technologies are going to be used and are being used to give us something back that's truly finite, that we can never get back time, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we're designing, right? Is systems and tools to give us back something that is more valuable than any money and any piece of technology that you can put out there. And that's time, whether it's time with family, better time spent at work. The fact is that we develop systems and methods and tools to give you more of that. I absolutely believe that given some of the early use cases that we're seeing now, everything from like a bank using an HR chat engine to saving, cattle to potatoes, right? To supporting municipal functions and improving citizen lives. All of the things that we've done so far have been methods of improving life, giving people more time, not replacing people either, by the way. That's been another one. Always going to take my jobs.
Right.
None of our technologies have replaced anybody. Now, are these systems going to be used for nefarious purposes? You better believe it. You better believe they are, right? The malicious actor out there is not short of targets. You better believe on the dark web, we're already seeing some of these tools being traded. We absolutely have seen things like AI engines being used to train voice. For example, it's scary, right? I have so many podcasts and everything out there that an AI engine can be trained and someone can use it for like blackmail or like a kidnapping attempt.
A calling.
Which actually happened. A nefarious actor used an AI engine to train it on a woman's voice, called the parents and said, "I'm holding your daughter hostage," played a recording of the daughter, and the people are like, "Oh my God, my kid's being held hostage." And then the daughter calls and, "No, I'm fine. What are you talking about?" That's incredible, right? So you better believe that it's going to be used. And hope is not a good strategy.
No, it's
Everyone is a target, right? So within Apollo, we do things like jailbreak detection. We do things like data leakage detection, right? We make sure that people can't force a query or force an answer out of our data set that could be inappropriate potentially. We also make sure that people can't upload things like social security numbers, private information, in a healthcare setting, private, potentially identifiable information or healthcare information. So good partners will go out of their way to make sure that your processes, people, systems, and data are secure. But we're not at a point where we're like, oh, it's Terminator. Oh, we're going to launch the missiles.
Yet.
I don't know. I'm such an optimist. I really feel like we're starting some of these safeguard conversations early enough that without massive systems like OpenAI, without massive systems like Llama 3.1, you can put guardrails around that. You can. Yeah. And without really expansive resources, you can't ultimately create something that's completely nefarious. Let's just say that. But those guardrails must exist.
Bill, I'm glad that a real data center person like yourself, trusts into humanity. And I'm actually with you as well. I think there's so many good things that can happen with AI. Obviously, there are bad actors all over the place. It's that argument with a guy with a gun. It can be used for bad and good things.
Weaponized AI is serious. It's a threat.
Yeah, it's true. Especially the war in Ukraine showed us that now there is a war of autonomous vehicles and the drones, and they are run by AI.
What happens when you run out of infantry?
Yeah,
that's what literally Ukraine's like. Well, time to send the robots, so you don't have anybody else.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That they just created that because of necessity, unfortunately. Yeah. Well, that's a separate conversation. Well, Bill, I guess on this note, I want to thank you for this conversation. Where do people can find you?
So obviously you're welcome to go to ChatGPT and ask about me, which is really, it's flattering. It's flattering. The ChatGPT does have a nice explanation of, I've written enough articles for it to know who I am. Apollo.us. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I do a lot of posting on there, a little bit on X, but mainly LinkedIn. So Bill.Kleyman. I'm sorry. Bill Kleyman is the on LinkedIn, but you can go to BillKleyman.com. There we go. That's my website where you can catch up where I'm presenting, some of my latest work, where my articles are being published. But otherwise, most importantly, just keep this conversation going. If you have questions, comments, anything at all, if one of the things that we talked about today sparked your interest or that childhood sense of wonder has been tickled, just ask questions of what you can do next, what you can build, and how these powerful technologies just really do move the needle in a lot of spaces.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone listening to this. Follow the podcast, follow me on all social media, as well as check my new website, Gerasymovych.com, for more conversation like this. And Bill, thank you very much.
Oh my gosh, it was a pleasure.